Dear students, in our last lecture, we started a brief introduction to Lagrangians and we said that if we have to find maxima or minima of a problem subjected to constraint optimization, where our constraint is an equality constraint, we will write Lagrangian in a form and we would equate the differentiation of Lagrangian with respect to x equal to 0 and partial derivative of Lagrangian with respect to lambda equal to 0. And by solving these two equations, let us say that this is function is just in single variable of x and another variable that we have introduced is lambda. When we equate them to 0, we get our solution. Now the question arises how we end up with this Lagrangian when we started with identifying or dealing with the slopes and the orthogonal lines to the tangent. Now if you look carefully, we were saying is that for particular point to be maxima or minima subjected to equality constraint, gradient of f should be lambda times gradient of g. And in equality constraint, lambda can also be written as minus lambda times the gradient of g, because this lambda value would automatically take care of psi. And sometimes you would encounter this form of del f plus lambda del g equal to 0. Now, when we extend this discussion to multivariate case, what we would expect is that whenever we are dealing with functions, this gradient, condition on gradient is satisfied even in multiple dimension. And when we open it up, we end up with del f upon del x1 equal to minus lambda times del g upon del x1, del f upon del x2 equal to minus lambda del g upon del x2, and we can keep on writing this equation as del f upon del xm equal to minus lambda del g upon del xm. And when we put this all these things together, we are essentially looking at the equation of the form del f equal to minus lambda del g, which again is same as the case we discussed for univariate functions. Also, when you look at the function specified here and what we have written here, we are essentially looking at the same thing, because when we say that Lagrange derivative of Lagrange of L is equal to 0, that would mean that we will take the differentiation of that Lagrangian function with respect to xi, and for the first time when we will take the differentiation, we will again get del f upon del xi minus lambda times del g upon del xi, and this should be equal to 0, which implies del f upon del xi is equal to lambda upon lambda into del g upon del xi, and we can extend it for I equal to 1 to m, and hence the Lagrangian is way to write all these notations in a compact form. Now, this was the case of constraint optimization subjected to equality constraint. And here we say that size of lambda is unconstrained. It can be positive, it can be negative. It is just upon the way we are writing that whether they are collinear or they are anti-collinear, or that is that if gradients are assumed to be in same direction, we can say that del f is equal to lambda times del g. If we assume initially that function is decreasing in another direction as compared to function g, in that case del f can be written as minus lambda del lg. So basically lambda is unconstrained in terms of sign when we are dealing with equality constraints. And this is very important because when we'll go to inequality constraint, we will try to look into it that what it means. Before we go ahead, let us quickly solve a numerical example, and this would be the same example that we were looking at, and try to find the full solution using Lagrange multipliers. So here the question is maximize fxy equal to x square y, which is subjected to a constraint x square plus y square equal to 1. So what we will do, first of all, we will induce our condition that del f should be equal to lambda times del g, or del of x square y should be equal to lambda times del of x square plus y square minus 1, because our constraint is g and our function is f. When we expand it, This would mean that we are simply saying that del f upon del x1 is equal to lambda times del g upon del x1, and del f upon del y is equal to lambda times del g upon del y1. And if you look this thing carefully, we are essentially having now two equations and three variables, because x is one variable, y is one variable, and lambda is one variable. And our third condition itself comes from the fact that x square plus y square equal to 1. Now, three variables and three equations are present which we can solve simultaneously, and we can end up with our answer. Another way to do this in a compact form is that let us construct the Lagrangian of this. Here we say that Lagrangian can be written as x square y minus lambda times x square plus y square minus 1, and rather than taking derivatives separately, we would say that differentiation of Lagrangian with respect to x should be equal to 0, differentiation or partial derivative of Lagrangian with respect to y equal to 0, and partial derivative of Lagrangian with respect to lambda equal to 0. From first condition, we get our equation as 2xy minus 2 lambda x equal to 0, x square minus 2 lambda y equal to 0, and third equation is x square plus y square minus 1 equal to 0. You see clearly this is the constraint from where we started, because when we take the differentiation with respect to lambda, this term would vanish and we would only be left with the constraint itself, and hence the kind of derivation that we were doing without even doing using Lagrangian, it was quite organic in a sense that all these three constraints are equivalent when we define the Lagrangian also. Now, when we solve this, these are quadratic systems. We get the value of x as plus minus root 2 by 3. We get value of y as plus minus 1 by 3. And now we know these values, and if we have to look into the and similarly, we can also calculate the lambda accordingly based on the problem that we have here. And if you put these values x, y, and that particular lambda should correspond to either maxima or minima. Now, how to check whether that point indeed is maxima or minima? Again, what we will do, we will construct the Hessian matrix of what? Hessian matrix of Lagrangian, not the individual functions, because here constraint is important. Here we have three variables, x1 equal to x, x2 equal to y, and x3 equal to lambda. And you know that you can easily write Hessian in the form that x square of lambda, x square of lambda with respect to del x1, del x1, del square of lambda, del x2, del x2, del square lambda, del x3, del x3, and here we can write del square lambda, del x1, del x2, del square lambda, del x1, del x3, del square lambda, del x2, del x3, del square lambda, del x2, del x1, and so on. So you can keep on populating these values here based on the ij or the location where you are in Hessian matrix, and that's why I was deliberately writing it to give you a complete sense. And now you know the Lagrangian, you keep on taking its double derivative with respect to x1, then double derivative of L with respect to x2 followed by x1 and so on. And once you construct this Hessian matrix, you can calculate its eigen values. And if all eigenvalues are greater than 0, we say that this point should correspond to minima. If all eigenvalues less than 0, that point at which you have calculated this Hessian matrix should correspond to maxima. And if certain eigenvalues are positive, certain eigenvalues are negative, we cannot say whether this is maxima or minima. Now, with this understanding, we are good to go and look into very important conditions called as Kahan-Tucker conditions or KKT conditions, Karush-Kahan-Tucker conditions, named after the scientists who first formalized it. So while Kern-Tucker formalized it in one of their topical work in the area of identifying the theoretical guarantees that gives us whether point is maxima or minima, it was noted that a scientist earlier published the similar conditions in his unpublished thesis work. That's why the name is Karush-Kahn-Tucker, based on the two combinations of the work that theoretize the work that we are going to discuss now, and they are very helpful in solving the problems of constraint optimization. But here the difference is we are dealing with the inequality constraint. And what is this inequality constraint? Let us again try to look with help of an let us try to look this with help of an example. Let us say our function now is x square plus y square that we try to minimize. Also, our another function is our constraint function, that this fx is subjected to the constraint that this gx should always be less than equal to or subjected to gx, where gx is x square plus y square less than equal to 1, which implies we have x square plus y square as our objective function, and our constraint function becomes x square plus y square minus 1 less than equal to 0. And when we try to visualize it, this is how this system is going to look like. So we will draw our objective function in red, that we want to minimize the value of x square plus y square. This is our circle centered at 0, and we want to find the value of c that is minimum for this function, but it is subjected to another constraint which says that our x square plus y square minus 1 has to be less than equal to 0. So if we look into the feasible region, we want to minimize it, and we know that the function that is shown in red would increase outwards, because as we keep on drawing circle, the radius would get larger and larger. So our solution space is somewhere towards the center. Also, we have a constraint which says that our solution space should be in this area, and it is clear that if that is the condition, our solution can simply be obtained by treating this problem as a problem of unconstrained optimization, because even if we remove this constraint circle, our solution is not going to change, because ultimately we will end up at this 0. Does not matter we have a constraint or not. In this case, we say that our constraint has become an inactive constraint. And whenever inactive constraint happens, that would mean that lambda in this case is equal to 0, because we really do not need that particular constraint to determine our solution. Also, one interesting thing that we notice here is that now it is just an unconstrained optimization problem. So what we can do is we can keep on taking differentiation of f with respect to xi, where I is number of variable in the function f, which in this case is equal to 2. So del xi equal to 0, we will get our solutions as we would do in the case of unconstrained optimization. And these are the two conditions that we have written, that this lambda equal to 0, del f upon del xi equal to 0. And if we say that lambda times gxi is also equal to 0, it is not going to be the different thing, because whenever you multiply any function with 0, output is always going to be 0 as long as we are in real space. And this particular result would become very important when we go to our next video. But to remember here, in case of unconstrained optimization, if lambda equal to 0, the constraint becomes inactive, and we can solve the problem as if it is a problem of unconstrained optimization. Now the question arises, do we keep on checking it whether where is our solution, or do we have a generic way to identify the feasible solution? And that is exactly what Kahn-Tucker conditions will help us answer, which will be subject of our next video. Thank you.